and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon. I'm Maia, a singer, a songwriter, a video maker, an Oakland native, and a movie connoisseur. Genuinely. I'm also a big fan of history. I love untold stories, gross facts, hidden secrets, anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. So each day, I'm going to share a few of my favorite deep cuts with you. So let's take a look at today's stories.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 with mxmtoon.
New month, new me, November, new rating system for movies? Well, in 1968, that was true. Today, in 1968, the Motion Picture Association of America introduced their movie rating system to indicate how age-appropriate the content was. Prior to the rating system developed that year, film ratings were governed by the Motion Picture Production Code, which had been the ruler of film ratings since 1930. Film professionals were getting sick of the MPPC, though, because they thought that their choices were getting too restricted and erring into censorship. Some filmmakers had filed lawsuits against the code under the protections of the First Amendment. Everyone agreed it was time for a change. The new rating system was created by a subdivision with the MPAA called CARA, the Classification and Rating Administration. The division was created by a former president and CEO of the MPAA, Jack Valenti. The program was meant to help curb government censorship of movies while helping parents figure out which movies were acceptable viewing for children. It tried to balance these goals while also protecting the First Amendment and the creative rights of filmmakers. The first set of MPAA ratings were slightly different than the ones we know today. The ratings were G, M, R, and X. G always stayed the same, general audiences. M was for mature audiences with parental discretion advised. R was for restricted. People under 16 couldn't go in unless they were accompanied by a parent or guardian. For X-rated movies, no one under 16 could be admitted at all. The system took a few years to finesse. 2 years later, in 1970, the age for M and R movies went up from 16 to 17. The general public wasn't sure if the M rating meant that films were suitable for children or young teens, so the M rating became the GP rating, general audiences with parental guidance. Eventually, this switched around to the PG that we know today, with PG-13 being added later for additional age separations. G-rated meant no strong language, only minimal violence, and no sex, drugs, or nudity. PG meant that there could be mild violence, brief nudity, and steps into more mature language, but considered to be on the less intense end of the spectrum. Drug content was forbidden if a film wanted to keep a PG rating. PG-13 could go further into questionable material like violence, nudity, sexuality, and foul language, but still considered appropriate enough to escape the dreaded R rating. Drug use required at least a PG-13 rating, but of course, more intense scenes of drugs could easily float a film into the R or X categories. Violence could also be present in PG-13 movies, but usually it was unrealistic or brief. Brief nudity was okay for PG-13 movies, but nudity that was sexualized usually heralded an R rating. R-rated movies obviously had more free reign. They could include violence, adult themes, uncouth language, sexualized nudity, and drug abuse. People under 17 couldn't see R-rated movies in the theater unless they were accompanied by a parent or guardian. The MPAA is all voluntary, aka it isn't enforced by law. A movie can be released as unrated if the creators so choose, although some movie theaters won't release unrated movies. The first few years of the new rating system weren't without incident. When The Exorcist came out in 1973, the CARA president at the time, Aaron Sturm, personally called the film's director to tell him that since he believed the film was an important theatrical milestone, he would release it under an R rating instead of an X, and wouldn't make any cuts for general audiences. This backfired a little bit because the content of the film was so intense that people literally vomited and fainted in theaters. A psychiatric journal even later noted 4 cases of cinematic neurosis caused by viewing the film. The X morphed into the NC-17, used today with a 1990 film called Henry and June, exploring the writer Anais Nin's sexual exploits with writer Henry Miller and his wife June. The X rating had become a kiss of death for movies since so many theaters refused to even show X-rated films. The MPAA came up with NC-17 as a compromise. It was meant to be less of an indictment and more respectable than the ominous X, but Henry and June wasn't even that inappropriate. The characters discuss and read some famous erotica, and there's a scandalous bacchanal, a party based on the Roman god of wine's hedonistic impulses, but the director didn't fight the rating. He figured that only adults were going to see a movie about the sexual exploits between two dead writers anyways. The system is occasionally criticized today for being more harsh on sex than on violence. In 1999, the rating board demanded that a scene involving oral sex and a supposedly too long orgasm be cut from Boys Don't Cry, but they didn't complain about the brutal murder of the main character, a transgender man. In 2000, American Psycho was able to skate by with an R rating after editing a scene where the main character sleeps with two prostitutes, but the board didn't have a problem with the same character murdering women with an axe, a chainsaw, and, in one case, decapitation. Now, let's move on from movie ratings to musical rantings. In 2015, Taylor Swift was sued by R&B artist Jesse Bram, recording under Jesse Graham, for $42 million. Bram alleged that Swift had stolen the lyrics in the song Shake It Off. The judge didn't buy it, though. They declared that Bram provided insufficient evidence that the lyrics were stolen beyond internal speculation. The judge, Gail Standish, joked around by using some earlier Swift lyrics in her decision. At present, the court is not saying that Bram can never, ever, ever get his case back on court, but for now, we have got problems, and the court is not sure Bram can solve them. As currently drafted, the complaint has a blank space, one that requires Bram to do more than write his name. And upon consideration of the court's explanation in Part 2, Bram may discover that mere pleading band-aids will not fix the bullet holes in this case. Whew, that was a lot of Taylor Swift references. I guess Standish was a fan. And now for our final segment of today, I'm going to be going into my own photo archives to see what I was up to on a November 1st in my life. On November 1st, 2018, I took a screenshot of my Twitter page in 2015, and it's quite similar to my current bio and everything. I haven't changed a whole lot, but it says here, Maia, at mxmtoon. I am another girl who sings and plays ukulele. I had that status for like literally 2 years, I think. She, her, my pronouns were there. Go girl, go. I also, so this is less of like a memory, but more of like a stamp mark of where I was currently at that point. I was following 101 people. I had 7,502 followers. I thought that was going to be my peak of fame. And now if I went to look at my bio and profile now in 2020, I can see that I have gained more than 400,000 followers, and I follow about 100 more people. So my ratio is really skinny. It's not on purpose or anything. It's just because my timeline gets really crowded and it gets overwhelming for me. But that's all for today. Thank you so much. Goodbye for now, but say hello again tomorrow while listening on your favorite devices. And remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts for more facts from yesterday.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365